Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel and this is a new installment of Gimme 10 dedicated to Mutant Disco and Punk Funk with an emphasis this week on the UK scene. I hope you'll enjoy this installment as much as I've enjoyed making it myself, fussing in my record collection and playing these records in a sort of thematic way. That's what I do it for, is for my own amusement really, but if you gain something from it, then please talk to me in the comment section. I'll really always appreciate that. So I was explaining in my last video that Mutant Disco is a genre that sort of appeared in New York City in the late 70s, early 80s, and that is more or less an amalgamation of Latin funk, disco, punk funk, new wave, no wave, just to basically arrive at a broth of funky disco. That's the kind of spirit. And I want to begin this video with records that sort of fit that kind of, you know, ideology, if you will, but are from the UK. And I'm going to start with this band here from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, Pig Bag with Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive, their first album from 1982. Pig Bag are a very, they very much represent the ethos of Mutant Disco down to a T. They became known for their crazy Latin sounding single Papa's Got a Brand New Pig Bag, which is obviously a kind of a take on James Brown, and you could say that Pig Bag are kind of like a squonky, tribal, avant-jazz version of James Brown, you know. Their sounds are very, like I said, tribal, rhythmic, playful, kind of. The first couple of songs there, I can't remember the name, not Wiggling, but Getting Up and Big Bag, yeah, and also Wiggling on side B are really, really infectious. You know, you get, you know, it's really is a mix of avant-jazz and tribal kind of disco sounds. I love this record. The back of my copy is back to front. You can get this record still very cheap, you know, like at least in Australia you can. I see this quite often in the bins in record stores, so you know I don't think it's a very difficult record to acquire. Great band, 1982, epitomizes the sound of Mutant Disco. Another artist for me that comes very close to that sound is Ian Dury, and I've chosen to represent his Mutant Disco sound with this compilation Jukebox Dury. I've got other Ian Dury albums. Ian Dury from Upminster in Essex in East London, grew up quite poorly, had polio, died way too young, but formed the Blockheads with Chas Jankel and put out some really infectious singles. And I think songs like Hit Me with Your Rhythm Stick, or my favorite Ian Dury and Blockhead song, Reasons to Be Cheerful Part 3, are really great examples of UK Mutant Disco. Also not included on this, but Spasticus Autisticus, which he recorded with Sly and Robbie, is a very, very much great example of Mutant Disco. It's not on there, but I highly recommend this compilation. It's really got everything that you may want or need, including sex and drugs and rock and roll and things like What a Waste, I Want to Be Straight, fantastic. And I love Ian Dury and I love that sound. Now I'll continue with that kind of Mutant Disco sound with a couple of Factory Records bands. The first one is A Certain Ratio. Obviously A Certain Ratio is from Manchester and they were signed on Factory very early on. They were one of Tony Wilson's favorite acts because of their aesthetics and the way they were wearing suits on stage. Sorry. They were very influenced by a lot of really great, like their sound is molded by things like the Velvet Underground, Kraftwerk, Parliament, Funkadelic. I mean, they've got a really good base of taste that makes their music really quite, you know, vital. They were also influenced by their contemporaries, like the pop group, for example, a big influence on a certain ratio. This is a collection of singles that came out on Soul Jazz Records with some classics like Do Do Do, Flight, Shack Up, which is probably the greatest, best known single. This came out in 2008 on Soul Jazz Records. They're formed by the core of Simon Topping and what's the other guy called? Peter Terrell, I think. And, you know, it's very sort of quirky, tribal, yeah, Mutant disco sound, Latin infused sound. Highly recommend. And so, since I was talking about Factory Records, I have to talk about this band here, which is not so well known, Quando Congo. They're a band that were formed in Rotterdam, in Holland, in the Netherlands. Sorry. They were formed around the core of Ronnie Rietveld, Mike Pickering, and also Simon Topping, who was the singer in A Certain Ratio I've just spoken about. But Mike Pickering was the A&R man for Factory Records, and sort of, you know, saw this band in Rotterdam and thought, you know, there would be a good signing. This is their soul. I don't think they've made another album, but it's fucking excellent. Really, it's just really dynamic. The whole production on this is so. Again, it fits that kind of Mutant disco. There's very Latin infused, very funky, very disco-y. It's got songs like Genius or Go Exciting, or the last song, Lowrider, I think was sampled by the Beastie Boys on Ill Communication. License to Ill. Very cool band, Quando Congo. This is Pigs and Battleship. It comes with the single of Love Tempo, which is probably the best known song is Love Tempo. So very highly recommend this band. All right, let me continue. I want to talk about a record which is, I reckon, synonymous with punk funk in the UK. I mean, they don't come any bigger than this, and I'm talking about Entertainment by the Gang of Four. One of my all-time favorite records. Everybody should own this record. I say this too often maybe, but this is one of these records like, you know, Wires, Pink Flag, or Marky Moon by Television, or Remaining Light by the Talking Heads, which I think will be records that I will listen to forever and ever and still get something from them. A band from Leeds, very highly political, obviously named after a communist faction. You know, it doesn't get any more political than this, really. And formed around the core of Andy Gill and John King. And what I love about the Gang of Four personally is that their sound is very idiosyncratic to start with. I mean, nobody sounds like them. There's four people in the band, and you can distinctly hear every part. It's not like, you know, you hear music and the bass does more or less what the guitar is doing, and the rhythm is very in sync with all this. I think with them, it's like with Marky Moon, you can detach every instrument and it brings something completely different to the mix. The bass playing on this is amazing. The guitar playing is infectious and sort of jittery and quirky. The drumming is again infectious. It's a fantastic record, and every song is killer basically. Ether, Naturals Not Needed, Not Great Man, I Found That Essence Rare, you know, At Home Is a Tourist, Anthrax. It's like a who's who. 1979 from Leeds. Another band from Leeds I want to talk about, from the same scene exactly, is the Delta 5. Now this is not what I would call a classic album specifically, but I think it's a lovely record nonetheless. Again, it's infused by the same kind of essence, but this record, again, it's the same kind of idea. It's jittery, it's female vocals though, not male vocals. Take a listen. I mean, you know, the Delta 5. Again, See the World from 1981, I think. Then, since I was talking about a band with female vocals, I'll continue with another one, and this is a killer record. The Au Pairs with Playing with a Different Sex from 1981. Absolute tour de force, punk funk 101, extraordinary records. They were formed in 1978 in Birmingham, around. I mean, obviously, there's two men and two women in this band, but the Au Pairs are largely viewed as a very highly feminist, in fact, very also LGBT conscious band. And Leslie Woods was very much, an advocate for, LGBT liberation in the UK at the time. It opens with "We're So Cool," which could be the anthem for punk funk, really, if there was one. The music is, political. It's conscious. It's quirky. It's jittery. It's urgent music. The Au Pairs is a band that nobody really talks about. Shrinkback. Shrinkback are a band from London. They formed in 1981. This is their first or maybe their second record. I think it's the second record from 1983. Came out on Y Records. I'm going to talk about Y Records in a second. The music is an amalgamation of, disco funk, new wave. This is very Mutant disco in spirit. It opens with the great Lined Up, which is kind of, it's funny, it's kind of melancholy, but also jittery and urgent, like the Au Pairs. The atmosphere is surreal, a bit, at times a bit lethargic as well, sounding. It's not a really sort of like in your face kind of Mutant disco. It's a bit more subdued. It's got Lined Up, Brink of Collapse, a great song. Sway is a great song. Shrinkback. My Spine is the bass line. It's a great Mutant disco song. It's a single that they released later. Here is a no-wave band. It's just a purely no-wave. Blurt. I think it's a self-titled. Blurt, band from Stroud, in I think Gloucestershire. Formed in. So who's in this band? Formed by Ted Milton and Jake Milton. This record's from 1982. This is very distant, raw, kind of anxious and manic. This is very much like the UK's James Black and the Whites, or the Contortions, if that's your thing, if you like squonky saxes. And this is a great little example of record. And I think, no, this is on Red Flame Records. I was going to say it was on Y Records as well, but no. And I'm going to finish with this fantastic album by Maximum Joy, Station Maximum Joy. Maximum Joy were from Bristol, and they're female fronted. The lead singer is Janine Rainforth, and this is a band that came out of the ashes, sort of another band called Glaxo Babies, which I've sort of put the record out there. I'm gonna show you two records for the price of one. Glaxo Babies. So Glaxo Babies were formed in 1977 in Bristol, and Tony Rafter formed Maximum Joy with Janine Rainforth. And in fact, on this album, on 9 Months to the Disco, the first song is Maximum Sexual Joy, which is where the name of the band actually obviously comes from. Maximum Joy is a blend of reggae, dub, avant jazz, jazz funk, disco rhythms. Sorry, I just hit my hand. They were on Y Records in the UK, but they got signed by 99 Records, which is the ESG and Liquid kind of label, and I think they fit well on that label too. And they released mostly singles, okay, and disco. Now that Stretch Stretch and the B-side, whatever the B-side was, I've got that on CD, is really kind of the most sort of anthemic kind of tune. But this album came in 1982. This is a reissue from 2019. At my last record fair, I had the chance of buying an original of this for a decent price, but I turned it down because I've got this beautiful, you know, what do I need? You know, why? What's the point? I mean, this sounds really great. It's, you know, so I just kept my reissue. Anyway, this is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this installment of the Mutant Disco Punk Funk UK scene. I'm thinking of doing another installment with more modern bands. I don't know, maybe I might, or I may or may not, I don't know. I'll see how I feel. In any case, thank you for your watching and commenting if you are, and you know, take care.